Wow, we just got through chapter 5. That thing come along pretty good. Ronnie spent some time to Applegate Ranch. Kind of got getting ready to go back and check on his gold claim, stuff like that. And now he's getting ready. Adventure will get heated up a little bit. I hope you enjoyed chapter 5 and looking forward to seeing you on chapter 6. Thank you. Chapter 6, Finding My Bank. As a kid will do when letting his mind wander, the idea of gold had me thinking about a lot of stuff. In my mind, I was buying everything I had ever seen and wanted. The only problem was I didn't have any of the gold yet, and besides, April 1st had been my birthday, so I was now 15 and a half years old and hoping for a big gold strike. I did not feel any different to what I felt before my birthday, and I never told Beth, Sam, or even little John that I was a year older. It just never came up. Thinking about that kind of stuff could get me pretty wound up. Now, back on Pa's claim, I put Dandy on a picket line by the water where he had plenty of grass to eat. I had the corral repaired, but all of the hay was burned. Diamond and I headed off to the little stream where I found the first nugget. We made good time and were there by mid-morning. Finding a good spot to picket Diamond beside the stream, I started to walk upstream looking for some sign of gold. Working slowly along the water's edge, I found another nugget alongside a rock that was half out of the water, just resting in a pocket of black sand. I was seeing more color than Pa and I ever found before by the cabin. Finding a few more nuggets, I was getting closer to owning that new Navy Colt. I spent most of the morning looking around the area and working up to higher ground, looking to see if the gold vein would show itself. The sun was getting high when I headed back down to Diamond. I took it slow and stopped every so often to take a look around. Today, I found a nice flat bench, a great location to build my future home. It is just off the stream, but high enough to keep out of any flood. I was starting to get hungry, so I took a seat on the bank leading back down to the stream and pulled out some jerky and a cold biscuit for lunch. As I was eating, I could see some trout rising to pick bugs off the top of the water. Earlier, I had seen a herd of deer upstream from me as I was panning for gold at the inside bend in the stream. Panning for gold took time to figure it out. A new thing that I was finding was that I was finding more black sand and gold on the inside edge of every bend as I panned. I also found out if I moved some of the larger rocks, there was gold under and around these rocks. After a bit of jerky, I got the pan and started sampling as I worked my way along the stream. Not every pan had gold nuggets, but did have some flakes. But this was way better than the area Pa and I had worked before. I think this was what Pa had been looking to find. I worked the rest of the day panning and finding some good nuggets, along with a lot of gold flakes. Finding the gold in this new stream was great, and I realized that trading 3 nuggets for Diamond was the best deal I could have ever made. I was thinking I found a real pocket. With this amount of gold I had panned just today, I needed to keep it quiet, but yet still be able to spend some of it on the new Colt pistol I wanted. I headed back to camp at a fair pace, taking a different way after removing any sign of being in the area. I rode out and panned for the gold for the next 4 days. I had 3 bags full of dust and another 3 of nuggets after the 4 days of panning. This is a great start for me to move forward with my life. I could see that I was going to have to keep my find a secret until I could file a proper claim. Or maybe I might just come back and work the stream to build up cash for whenever I needed more money. This could be my bank when I needed to buy something important. After getting back to the dugout, I set about to improve the place. The corral was the first on my list. Now I was thinking about the gold and what I wanted to do with Pa's claim. After working with Sam and Beth, I could also see that this place could work as a good cattle ranch. I would need a detailed map to show what land I wanted. Setting the borders with markers was important when filing on the land. I might be able to file on a large chunk of it. If I did this, I could keep anyone from finding the gold. I needed to think on it for a few days, but first of all, I would have to scout the area to mark off the land and water needed to make a paying ranch. I planned to ask Sam how he filed on his land. He might help me do the paperwork. My other concern was I did not know how old I had to be to file a claim on the land I needed for my ranch. If I could file on the land I had mapped out, I could control all the water over a very large piece of land with my gold mine in the center of my map. Over the next few days, I pushed Diamond and Dandy to the limit, writing out and making a map of the land I wanted. Each night when I returned to the dugout, I would add to the map each corner with the markers and a detailed description of the land around the marker. I had to get back soon, or Sam would come looking for me. After 2 weeks out, I packed up and headed back to the Applegates Ranch and back to the day-to-day operations that I needed to learn how to manage a horse and cattle operation. Everything I could learn from Sam would help me when I set up my own ranch in the near future. Having a plan in place, I decided to study how Sam did things and why he did them that way. Sam was a willing talker, and the more he talked, the better my plan was forming up in my mind. With more information coming to me from Sam, I was able to add to my map and detail the plan on how I would set up my total operation when I was able to file on my land for my ranch. I asked him one day, "Why did you get the standard bred stallion?" This was heavy on my mind. "Well," Sam said, "he was free." "How did you come by that deal?" I asked, amazed. "Well," he said, "the Army wanted better horses, so they would give a rancher a stallion, and by breeding the Mustang mares to him, I got a better ride and more speed. Diamond is the first colt out of the stud, but Dandy could also be one of the first foals the following year after I put the stud in with the mares. I think you have tested Diamond out and can see what a difference the breeding makes. Sam, have you kept track of the mares to see if any of them drop better foals? It is obvious that Diamond is the best of the lot. His mother is one to keep an eye on if I was you. Joe and the first horses you started to train are Mustangs, and they lack the speed you get from the standard bred stallion. But remember, the Mustang mares make a horse that can eat anything and do well for a long patrol, even if they only eat bunch grass. When I look at Dandy, I see a better horse than Joe or any of the other Mustangs, and he is faster than any of the others. You remember that I beat Little John riding Joe by a very large margin." "Who is Dandy's mother?" Ronnie asked. "Ronnie, he is a half-brother to Diamond. That could explain why he is faster. His speed had to come from the mare. It was stuff I needed to know, and Sam figured I was just trying to do a good job." As I learned, Sam had worked on some large horse and cattle ranches in his past. One of the most important things I learned was how to work with the young horses, how to get their trust and then bring them along slowly. Sam called us boys over and gave us a job to head into the upper meadows to check on the cattle and start drifting them closer to the trails leading down to the lower valleys. Little John and I saddled up, and I would be able to see if Diamond was as good as I thought he was. Little John had Dandy, so we could make better time getting to the high country. The other horses were okay, but just not as good as these two were. Reaching the high country, we could see some of the cattle at the back edge along the heavy brush. "Ronnie, we need to just ride along the edge and don't look at the cattle, or they may just jump into the brush, and we will have a hard time getting them out, so we will just talk and ride slow, but when I say go, we need to get to the brush before the cattle can get up and run." We had our heads looking down and just seeing a bit ahead when Little John said, "Go." Dandy and Diamond were through the cattle before any of them could even stand. "Little John, so that's how it is done." "Yes," he said, "we will need to do this every time. Ronnie, these two horses can really run. I had you by a length, but you passed me before we even reached the cattle. Little John, I think your dad made a big mistake selling me this horse." All morning they worked the small bunches of cattle, moving them closer to the main trail, so when it was time, they can drive them to the lower ground in hours instead of days. It was late when they made it back down to the ranch for supper and make the report to Sam and Beth about the condition of the cattle. During dinner, Sam asked the boys if they figured that the cattle would stay close to the trail, so in a few weeks you two can ride back up and bring them down to the lower valleys to winter. Little John said that there is some water close to the trail and that should hold them for a few weeks and the grass was still good. Working with the horses, cattle, and cleaning out the springs around the ranch about filled up the summer. Soon fall was working into winter. We had some snow and rain for a few weeks. It's time to finish training the horses, Sam said. He had had a bit of fun with us on the first couple of horses we started. He let us get bucked off and kicked a few times before giving us some pointers. He told us how the lead mare in the herd handled all the horses. She kept the other horses in line, pushing some off and then allowing them to rejoin the herd. In order to do it, she would just keep facing the offender and move him out of the herd. It caused the young horses a lot of stress. Sam told me to watch when she turned to the side. Watch the young studs pick up their heads, move over, and make up to her. When we started to train a young horse, we put it in the round pen and forced the horse to walk, trot, and run around by using the rope, as we stood in front of it and faced it down. After a while, they would drop their heads and start chewing. That was the time to turn away. Then the horse would come over and allow us to touch it. After this, we could move along much faster, getting them to accept our training since we now had their trust. By using this method, we were able to handle their feet and not get kicked. It took a few hours instead of days. Then Sam told Little John to bring in a couple of steers and put them in the corral next to the round pen where we worked the young horses. During the summer, we had a few of the cattle we needed to keep an eye on and do some doctoring on them, so we rode over and moved two of the big steers over as Sam had asked us to do. As we advanced the training to handling steers, Sam asked us how the horses were doing when roping and holding a calf, how they behaved when we got off to check the steer out. We told him that it took both of us to catch a calf to hold it. Sam said, "Here, I'm going to show you a trick. You need to have your horse watch the calf or steer when you have a rope on it and keep the rope tight. Bring one of the young horses over to the round pen so I can show you how to do it." He was tricky. He put the loop over the horns of the steer and ran the rope through the fence and into the round pen. Then Sam had us put a halter on the colt. He ran the rope through the halter and tied the rope off to the saddle horn. Then he turned the steer loose, and the fun came when Sam dumped some feed into the feed box, along with some water into the tank on the other side of the pen from the corral fence. That is when, as the steer started to go to the food, it about pulled the horse over. It didn't take very long before the horse wouldn't take his eyes off the steer and always kept the rope tight. We kept this up for a couple of days. Then we went out and roped a steer, and when it was caught, the horse just kept pulling back to help keep the rope tight. Now we could hold a calf with just one of us. Sam told us boys that he would help us bring down the cattle from the high meadows tomorrow. That way we could get it done in one day by working together. That afternoon, Sam was working with one of the 2-year-olds and got kicked in his right knee. We helped him back into the house so Beth could take care of him. "Boys, you are on your own in the morning. I'm not going to be able to help you move the cattle down." Little John and I could feel a change as the day moved on toward evening. The rain started to fall, along with a drop in the temperature. That night we decided to take 4 horses with us up to the high meadows to get the cattle. This rain we knew would be turning to snow after dark. In the morning we found a foot of snow in the ranch yard when we got up for breakfast. Beth had gotten up early so we could get an early start. After eating, we went out to saddle the horses that we would ride first today. We decided to pony Diamond and Dandy and ride 2 of the other 3-year-olds. Leaving the yard with the snow still falling and the light had not started to show, we started the climb to the high meadows. Reaching the second spring, we tied off Diamond and Dandy so they could drink and get a bit of grass under the snow. Riding up to the highest part of the ranch, we started to gather the cattle and start them down to the lower elevation. The cattle had started to move into the brush for protection from the weather, but many still were just laying down. We rode on past them before starting them moving. We each took to the brush to move a few out to join the others. When they came out of the brush, the others stood up and started moving toward the trail that led down the mountain to the valley. It took us to about noon to move the cattle down to Diamond and Dandy. We pushed them a bit further down the mountain before returning to change horses. With the saddles on Diamond and Dandy, we turned the two horses loose with a slap on their flank. They started to head back to the ranch on their own. They knew where the feed was. With the fresh horses, we were able to get back into the smaller valleys to gather the cattle and move them back to the main herd. These lower meadows were much larger, so it took a lot of riding. But by late in the day, we had what we thought were all the cattle rounded up, and as we brought the last few to the main herd, we started to push them down to the lower valley. Snow had been falling all day. Our horses were covered with snow, and Little John and I looked like two snowmen. We pushed the cattle down to the stream so they could drink. They would need to move some snow to get at the grass. We found the two horses at the corral gate waiting to be let in and fed. Diamond and Dandy had done a full day's work. It took us an hour to brush them out and get them in their stalls, having plenty of grain and hay. Reaching the house, we found Sam having coffee with his leg resting on a chair and pillow with cold rags on his knee. "Well, boys, look like you both got a full day's work in for a change, Beth. Do you think we should feed them or what?" "Beth said we have been worried all day about you two out in this storm. Why don't you both change into dry clothes, then get by the fireplace where it is warm, and I will get you some hot food ready, and you can eat there." The winter was on us full force at the first of the year, so we had plenty of tack repairs to keep us busy. We were looking at 1860, hoping it would be a better year than the old one. Sitting around the stove for a few days, I questioned Sam about how he got this land, what it cost, things Pa had talked about from time to time. Sam told me he made a map on paper, and this map had landmarks called out on it to show what he owned. You remember seeing the pile of rock on top of the mountain with the broken snag on it, don't you? "Yeah," I said. "That is about 5 miles south of here." "Well," Sam said, "it is one of my markers that shows my southeast corner. I just rode out in 4 different directions and placed landmarks that are my corner markers. Another thing I did was to take land that would block anyone else from using it. If I have the water, they cannot pass through my land to get to what they want, and I can use it for my cattle. I had my corner markers set down on paper and I marked the streams. Then I had to get it on file at the land office. Sam and Beth were good people, but I had a mind not to tell them much about my long-term plans. I was thinking if they had any idea what I wanted to do, they might think hard on the gold I had used to get Diamond. Gold causes people to do things they would never normally do, so I kept the location of the gold to myself, just like Pa said. Winter was easing up and we moved the cattle to keep them on better feed in the lower valleys. It was warming up and spring was on the way. We would need to move them to the upper pastures in a few weeks. The time had come for me to ride into Mr. Brown's store. I had about grown out of all my clothes. My boots were down to nubs and my shirts had moved up my arms so they were hard to button. One night at dinner, I made my needs known. I had a plan and I needed to get started. Sam said he was planning to go to town in a few weeks and added, "But if you want to go now, that's okay. It is up to you. You could go with me if you want to wait." "I'll go now," I said. "As you can see, I'm growing out of my duds." Beth said, "You are still a mite young to be traipsing around alone. You need to keep low and stay out of trouble." "I'll be careful," I promised. I had made a pack saddle for Dandy. Sam had shown me how to make the pack saddle. It had taken me a week of my spare time. Now I needed to go through all of my stuff and get it loaded into some bags I could tie onto my pack saddle. As I was packing, Sam came out with 2 large panniers that would fit my pack saddle. He had been keeping them for a surprise for me when I was ready to leave the ranch. "Ronnie, you need to use these on Dandy. I don't need them," so they are a gift for helping me around the ranch. Thanks, Sam. They sure are going to be a big help even on this trip. I had planned on purchasing some when I got to town. Ronnie, you will also need this. I made this cowhide scabbard for you to hold your Henry. I know you like to keep the Spencer in your hands, so this will make your traveling easier, I hope. Thanks, Sam. This will be a major help. Yes, I do like the Spencer because it has a longer range. The Henry is great for shooting under 150 yards. I was planning on leaving the next morning after breakfast. I for sure didn't want to miss my last free meal. That night I got ready for my trip, packing my saddlebags with what clothes I had. Loading both of my rifles, I was ready to ride at first light. Sam said, "You planning on going to war, Ronnie?" "You never know," I said.
Wow, I think we got a real thing going here. Ronnie's learned a little bit about breaking horses, been up the hill running cattle, went to the bank up to the where he's going to make his ranch. Man, I'll tell you, this is crazy stuff. Found some more gold, getting ready to go to town, and new experiences are coming along. I think Ronnie's doing pretty well.